Welcome to Forgotten Civilizations, the channel where history's deepest mysteries come alive. Across the globe, buried in deserts, jungles, and valleys, lie the remains of societies so advanced, so enigmatic, that they defy everything we thought we knew about the past. Here we don't just revisit history, we challenge it. Every episode we uncover lost worlds, forgotten knowledge, and the unanswered questions that continue to haunt archaeologists, historians, and dreamers alike. If you've ever wondered whether the greatest secrets of humanity still lie hidden in plain sight, you are in the right place. Today we begin with a mystery that has the power to rewrite the very origins of civilization in the Americas. A place older than the Incas, older than the Maya, and rivaling the Great Pyramids of Egypt in age. Welcome to Caral, America's Forgotten Metropolis. Discovery of Caral. In the barren Supe Valley of coastal Peru, where the desert meets the Andes, the wind sweeps across miles of dust and stone. For centuries, locals walked past curious mounds scattered across the valley, their presence noted but never truly understood. To the untrained eye, these mounds seemed like nothing more than the natural humps of the desert floor, worn down by time and erosion. Yet, hidden beneath them lay one of the greatest secrets of the ancient world. The story of Caral's discovery begins not in the distant past, but in the 20th century. In the 1940s, American archaeologist Paul Kosok was among the first outsiders to take interest in the Supe Valley. He noticed strange formations, mounds of unusual size and arrangement, but without the tools or resources to investigate fully, the site remained an enigma. It wasn't until decades later, in the 1990s, that Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady Solis returned to the valley with a mission to uncover what truly lay beneath the sands. What she and her team found would shake the foundations of archaeology. Excavations revealed not random hills, but massive pyramidal structures, some rising nearly 60 feet high, built from stone and packed earth. Layer by layer, the team uncovered walls, staircases, and ceremonial plazas that spoke of careful planning and deliberate construction. As the dust cleared, the mounds transformed into something extraordinary, a lost city, older than anyone had dared to imagine. Carbon dating stunned the academic world. The structures were not 1,000 years old, nor even 2,000. They dated back nearly 5,000 years, contemporary with the pyramids of Egypt, and older than the great cities of the Maya or the Aztec. This meant that in the Americas, long before Machu Picchu or Teotihuacan, a civilization had already risen, flourished, and built monumental architecture that rivaled anything in the Old World. But the revelation was not only about age, it was about scale. Caral was no mere village. Covering more than 150 acres, the site included 6 pyramids, vast circular plazas, residential complexes, and evidence of organized labor. Estimates suggest that several thousand people lived here at its height, supported by an economy that stretched far beyond the valley. This was not just an ancient settlement. It was a metropolis, the beating heart of a sophisticated society that had emerged seemingly out of nowhere. The discovery of Caral forced historians to rethink long-held assumptions. For years, scholars believed that civilization in the Americas began much later than in Mesopotamia or Egypt. The timeline suggested that while the Old World was writing texts and raising empires, the New World remained in relative simplicity. But Caral shattered that narrative. Here was proof that complex societies in the Americas had arisen independently, as early and as brilliantly as anywhere else in the world. And yet, for all that has been revealed, Caral remains a city wrapped in silence. Unlike Egypt, there are no hieroglyphs carved into stone. Unlike Mesopotamia, there are no cuneiform tablets recording its kings or gods. Caral left us no written record, only its pyramids, plazas, and artifacts. Its discovery is both a triumph and a frustration, a clear sign of human genius, but with so many missing pieces that its story is incomplete. When Ruth Shady announced her findings in 2001, the world finally turned its gaze to the Supe Valley. Caral was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, hailed as the oldest known city in the Americas. And yet, outside of academic circles, Few people have even heard of it. While the pyramids of Giza draw millions of tourists, Caral remains quiet, remote, its ruins standing as lonely monuments to a forgotten age. But the question that burns brighter than any other is this: why here, and why then? How did a people with no known written language, no metal tools, and no wheels achieve such staggering feats of engineering and social organization nearly 5,000 years ago? The discovery of Caral didn't just rewrite the history of the Americas. It posed a challenge to our very understanding of how civilizations begin. In the end, the discovery of Caral is not just the story of a lost city uncovered from the sand. It is the story of how human history is still full of shadows, waiting to be illuminated. The Supe Valley, once thought empty, has proven to be one of the birthplaces of civilization itself. And as we stand before the weathered pyramids of Caral, we are reminded that our past is far deeper, far older, and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. Society, economy, and daily life of Caral. When we think of great civilizations, it is often their monuments that capture our imagination. The pyramids, temples, and towering ruins left behind. Yet behind every stone, every plaza, and every pyramid lies something far more human. The people who built, sustained, and inhabited these cities. Caral, though silent today, once teemed with the rhythm of daily life. It was a civilization not only of architects and priests, but of farmers, fishermen, weavers, traders, and families whose collective work formed the foundation of this ancient metropolis. To truly understand Caral, we must step beyond its monumental architecture and glimpse the social and economic systems that animated it. At its core, Caral's society was remarkably complex for its time. Archaeological evidence suggests a clear social hierarchy, though not one defined by kings or warrior elites. Instead, leadership likely rested in the hands of priests or administrators who guided both religious and civic life. The absence of military fortifications or weapons implies that governance was not enforced by violence, but through ritual authority and social organization. The very layout of the city, with pyramids, plazas, and ceremonial spaces, reinforced this structure. The leaders of Caral appear to have derived their legitimacy from their ability to mediate between the earthly and the divine, guiding agricultural cycles, ceremonies, and trade. This spiritual political leadership was supported by a population engaged in a highly organized economic system. Caral was not isolated. It thrived because it stood at the center of a vast trade network stretching from the Andes to the Pacific coast. Excavations have uncovered goods from distant regions: cotton textiles, gourds, shells, and fish from the coast, stones, dyes, and minerals from the highlands, and even exotic items such as the remains of jungle plants brought from far away. These findings reveal that Caral was a hub of exchange, connecting diverse ecological zones and enabling specialization. Cotton played a central role in this economy. Though not edible, cotton was indispensable for making fishing nets. Fishermen along the coast relied on Caral's cotton to sustain their work, while Caral's inland population depended on the protein-rich fish and shellfish provided in return. This symbiotic relationship created a balanced economy where each community contributed its strengths. Caral's prosperity, therefore, rested not on conquest or plunder, but on cooperation, exchange, and interdependence. Life in Caral was sustained by agriculture, adapted ingeniously to the desert environment of the Supe Valley. Farmers cultivated squash, beans, guava, and other crops using irrigation canals that brought life-giving water from the nearby rivers. These irrigation systems required communal labor and coordination, reinforcing the collective spirit of the society. Food production was sufficient not only to support a population of thousands, but also to allow surpluses that could be traded for other goods. The people of Caral had mastered the art of turning arid soil into fertile fields, an achievement that enabled their civilization to flourish for centuries. But the economy of Caral was not limited to food and cotton. Evidence suggests a thriving craft tradition. Artisans wove fine textiles, crafted musical instruments from animal bones, and produced goods that carried both practical and symbolic meaning. Among the most fascinating discoveries are flutes and horns made from condor and pelican bones, some still playable after thousands of years. Their presence in ceremonial contexts suggests that music was an integral part of ritual life, binding the community together through shared experience. One can imagine the haunting sounds of flutes rising across the plazas during nighttime ceremonies, mingling with the crackle of fire and the glow of starlight. Daily life in Caral was organized around both work and ritual. Families likely lived in modest dwellings built of stone and organic materials. The rhythm of the year was shaped by agricultural cycles, trade expeditions, and ceremonial gatherings. Women played vital roles not only in domestic life but also in weaving and possibly in ritual activities. Children grew up learning the skills of farming, fishing, and craftsmanship, ensuring that traditions were passed down through generations. What is striking is the evidence for communal identity. Unlike later civilizations where kings carved their names into stone or warriors adorned themselves in trophies, Caral left no grand depictions of rulers or individuals. The monuments, plazas, and artifacts speak not of personal glory, but of collective achievement. This suggests a society where identity was rooted in shared cultural and spiritual life rather than in the dominance of individuals. Religion and spirituality permeated Caral's daily existence. Archaeologists have uncovered altars, ceremonial spaces, and evidence of offerings, indicating that rituals were central to community life. Fire pits, carefully constructed within temples, hint at ceremonies where flames were used to carry offerings skyward. The orientation of structures toward celestial events reinforces the idea that the people of Caral saw themselves as participants in a cosmic order, their rituals echoing the movements of the heavens. Through ceremony, they affirmed their connection not only to one another, but also to the natural and divine forces that sustained them. Equally important was the role of knowledge in society. Though the people of Caral had no writing system, they appear to have possessed sophisticated forms of record-keeping and communication. Archaeologists have found quipu-like artifacts, knotted strings similar to those later used by the Inca for accounting and storytelling. These could represent an early attempt at a numerical or symbolic system, allowing leaders to track trade, resources, or ceremonial calendars. If so, Caral may represent one of the earliest steps toward abstract systems of communication in the Americas. Despite the apparent lack of warfare, Caral was not without challenges. Environmental pressures, such as droughts, floods, or resource scarcity, may have periodically tested the resilience of its people. The ability to sustain large-scale irrigation, coordinate labor, and manage trade networks required constant organization and adaptation. It is possible that these pressures eventually contributed to the decline of the city, as shifting environmental conditions forced populations to move or reorganize. Yet for nearly a millennium, Caral endured, a testament to the strength of its social and economic foundations. When we look at Caral society, what emerges is a vision of civilization unlike the empires that would later dominate history. Here was a people who created monumental architecture without armies, who built vast trade networks without conquest, and who sustained spiritual life without kings or dynasties. In Caral, we find a model of civilization rooted in harmony, cooperation, and shared purpose. It challenges the assumption that power must always rest on violence, that greatness must always be proclaimed by rulers, and that civilization must always be born in blood. In its quiet way, Caral offers a profound lesson. Civilization does not always emerge from conquest or domination. It can also emerge from collaboration, from shared belief, and from the simple yet profound desire to live in harmony with the environment and with one another. The people of Caral remind us that humanity's greatness lies not only in its capacity to build, but in its capacity to cooperate. Today, as we trace the outlines of Caral's plazas, pyramids, and homes, we are reminded that these were not just stones, they were the settings of human lives. Men and women sowed crops, wove cotton, raised children, played music, and prayed beneath these skies. Their voices are lost to us, but their city endures, and through it, their story continues to speak. A story not of warriors and kings, but of people who dreamed of a better way to live together. Religion, rituals, and cosmic connections of Caral. When we gaze upon the pyramids of Caral, standing silently against the desert horizon, It is tempting to see them merely as monuments of stone. Yet for the people who built them, these were not lifeless structures. They were sacred spaces, living temples that connected earth to sky, people to gods, and time to eternity. In Caral, religion was not separate from daily life. It was the pulse that sustained the city, the rhythm that guided every action, and the invisible bond that held its people together. Archaeological discoveries at Caral have revealed that its pyramids were more than feats of engineering. They were temples, carefully designed for ritual use. Within their walls, researchers found altars, fire pits, offering chambers, and evidence of ceremonial activities. The central pyramid, rising like a silent sentinel, likely served as the heart of Caral's spiritual life. At its summit, priests or ceremonial leaders performed sacred rites, watched by the gathered community in the plazas below. These ceremonies were not mere performances. They were acts of cosmic significance, believed to ensure the balance of the world, the fertility of the fields, and the prosperity of the people. One striking feature of Caral's temples is the presence of circular sunken plazas adjoining major pyramids. These plazas, dug into the ground and surrounded by stone walls, created enclosed spaces for communal gatherings. Here, hundreds of people could assemble, standing in concentric circles as priests led ceremonies in the center. The design itself carried symbolic meaning. Circular forms represented unity, cycles, and the eternal return of natural rhythms. Within these plazas, the community was not divided by class or status. All stood together as participants in the sacred drama. Central to Caral's religious practice was the element of fire. Archaeologists discovered numerous fire pits within temple complexes, often lined with stone and containing traces of burned offerings. Fire was seen as a bridge between the human and divine realms. As flames consumed offerings of food, textiles, or incense, the smoke was believed to carry prayers upward to the gods. These rituals were not private acts, but public spectacles, reinforcing the bond between community, leaders, and the spiritual world. Perhaps most fascinating is the evidence of musical instruments, flutes and horns fashioned from the bones of condors, pelicans, and deer. These were not utilitarian tools but sacred instruments used in ritual. When played during ceremonies, their haunting tones would have echoed through the plazas and pyramids, filling the desert night with sound. Music in Caral was not entertainment. It was sacred communication, a way of aligning human voices with the rhythms of the cosmos. In many ancient traditions, music was thought to harmonize the earthly and the divine, and Caral appears to have embraced this belief with profound intensity. But what gods did the people of Caral worship? Unlike later civilizations, Caral left no statues of deities, no carved inscriptions, no written records to name their pantheon. Yet hints can be found in the orientation of their structures, in their offerings, and in the natural world around them. Many temples and plazas are aligned with celestial events, the solstices and equinoxes that marked the passage of time. This suggests that Caral's religion was deeply tied to astronomy and the cycles of nature. The people saw the heavens not as distant but as an active part of their world, and they shaped their rituals to mirror the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Offerings discovered within Caral's temples provide further clues. Archaeologists found fruits, vegetables, cotton textiles, and shells placed in ritual contexts. These offerings reflect gratitude to the gods for sustenance and fertility. They also reveal a cosmology where the gifts of the earth and sea were sacred, and where the survival of the community depended on honoring the natural forces that sustained them. Unlike civilizations that built religions on conquest or blood sacrifice, Caral appears to have focused on reciprocity with nature, giving back to the earth and sea in exchange for abundance. This is not to say that Caral lacked complexity and belief. On the contrary, the sophistication of their architecture and ritual spaces suggests a worldview both profound and intricate. Their priests, acting as intermediaries, likely guided the community through cycles of planting and harvest, life and death, drought and rain. Religion gave meaning to these cycles, transforming them into sacred patterns that connected the human with the cosmic. Through ritual, the people of Caral participated in a drama larger than themselves, one that stretched from the desert sands beneath their feet to the stars shining above. The absence of evidence for warfare in Caral has led some scholars to speculate that religion may have served as the primary unifying force of the civilization. Instead of armies and kings enforcing order, it was shared belief and communal ceremony that bound society together. The pyramids, plazas, and temples were not only architectural marvels, but also instruments of social cohesion. They created spaces where thousands could come together, experience awe, and reaffirm their collective identity. One of the most intriguing aspects of Caral's spiritual life is the possible use of early quipu-like devices in ritual contexts. Quipu, knotted cords later used by the Inca to record information, may have had symbolic or ceremonial precursors in Caral. If true, this suggests that the act of recording and communicating meaning was itself part of the sacred order. Numbers, knots, and cords could have carried spiritual as well as practical significance, linking knowledge to ritual. When we compare Caral to other ancient civilizations, its spiritual character stands out as unique. In Mesopotamia, towering ziggurats proclaimed the might of kings and gods. In Egypt, pyramids stood as monuments to divine pharaohs. In Caral, however, the monuments seem less about individual rulers and more about communal spirituality. This civilization expressed its greatness not through the glorification of leaders, but through collective participation in cosmic harmony. Standing in the ruins today, one can imagine a ritual night at Caral. The plazas filled with people, torches flickering, the sound of flutes rising into the desert air. Priests stand upon the pyramids, their silhouettes outlined against the starlit sky. Fire burns at the altars, carrying offerings upward. The crowd gazes toward the heavens, watching as the moon rises above the horizon. In that moment, time itself feels suspended, and the people of Caral are united, not only with one another, but with the universe itself. This vision is perhaps Caral's greatest gift to history. It shows us that civilization does not always emerge from war, conquest, or hierarchy. It can also be rooted in ritual, belief, and cosmic connection. Caral teaches us that human beings have always sought not only to survive, but to find meaning, to align themselves with forces greater than themselves, and to create sacred spaces where earth and sky meet. Today, as we search for answers about Caral, we are reminded of our own enduring quest for connection. We too look to the stars. We too perform rituals of community, and we too seek meaning in the patterns of life and death. Caral's religion may be lost to us in detail, but its essence remains universal. The human desire to belong to something larger, to live in harmony with the cosmos, and to make the fleeting moments of life part of an eternal order. The legacy and mystery of Caral. As we reach the end of Caral's story, we find ourselves confronted not only with the achievements of this extraordinary civilization, but also with the enduring mysteries it left behind. Caral, often called the Mother City of the Americas, stands as one of the earliest cradles of organized society on this side of the world. Yet for all that has been uncovered, its pyramids, its plazas, its trade networks, and its rituals, much of Caral's true nature remains hidden, buried beneath the sands of time. What we do know is enough to transform our understanding of history. What we do not know keeps us searching, questioning, and wondering. Caral's legacy begins with its antiquity. Long before the Incas, long before the Aztecs or Maya, the people of Caral built monumental pyramids and complex urban centers. At nearly 5,000 years old, Caral challenges the timeline of the Americas. It reveals that civilization here did not lag behind the so-called Old World of Egypt and Mesopotamia, but emerged in parallel, with its own unique character. For decades, scholars assumed that the Americas developed complex societies much later, around 1000 BCE. Caral shattered that assumption. Its ruins, radiocarbon dated to 2600 BCE, pushed the dawn of American civilization back by nearly 2 millennia. The influence of Caral may not have been confined to its own valley. Many scholars believe it played a role in shaping later Andean cultures. The architectural styles seen in Caral, the pyramidal mounds, sunken plazas, and ritual spaces echo across centuries in sites built by successor civilizations. Though no direct evidence of conquest or expansion has been found, Caral's ideas may have spread through trade, migration, and cultural exchange. In this sense, Caral could be seen not only as a city but as a cultural seed, planting patterns that would grow and flourish across the Andes for thousands of years. Yet Caral also leaves us with profound mysteries. Perhaps the greatest of these is the question of its decline. For nearly a millennium, Caral thrived, sustained by agriculture, trade, and religion. And then, seemingly without warning, it faded. The pyramids were abandoned, the plazas grew silent, and the people dispersed. What happened? The answer remains uncertain. Some scholars point to environmental changes, prolonged droughts, shifting river courses, or resource depletion that made life in the Supe Valley unsustainable. Others suggest that internal social stresses, population pressures, or changes in trade networks may have weakened the city. Whatever the cause, Caral's end came not with conquest, invasion, or war, but with a slow retreat, leaving behind monuments that would endure long after their builders were gone. Another enduring mystery is Caral's system of knowledge. The discovery of quipu-like artifacts raises tantalizing questions about how this society recorded and transmitted information. Were these knotted cords simple accounting tools, or did they carry stories, myths, or even laws? If Caral had developed a form of proto-writing, it would dramatically reshape our understanding of the origins of literacy in the Americas. For now, we can only speculate, piecing together fragments of meaning from fibers that once carried the thoughts of an entire civilization. Equally puzzling is Caral's peaceful nature. Unlike many ancient sites, Caral shows no signs of fortifications, no evidence of weapons, and no mass graves of soldiers. In a world where early states often emerged through warfare and conquest, Caral seems to have charted a different path. Its unity was forged not by violence but by ritual, cooperation, and shared purpose. Was Caral truly a civilization without war, or have we simply not yet uncovered its darker side? The evidence so far suggests that Caral stands as a rare example of a society built on harmony rather than conflict. If so, its legacy is not only architectural, but moral, offering a glimpse of what humanity can achieve without the shadow of constant war. Caral also holds a legacy for our present time. In its irrigation systems, we see the ingenuity of people adapting to a harsh environment. In its trade networks, we see the power of cooperation across diverse landscapes. In its music and rituals, we see the timeless human desire to connect with the sacred. And in its pyramids and plazas, we see the will of ordinary people to build something greater than themselves, something that would endure for generations. These are lessons as relevant today as they were 5,000 years ago. But perhaps Caral's greatest gift to us is perspective. Too often, history is told through the lens of conquest and empire, of kings and warriors, of triumph and bloodshed. Caral reminds us that civilization can be built differently. It can emerge not from domination but from collaboration, not from war but from worship, not from the glorification of rulers but from the unity of a people. Caral is not just an archaeological site, it is a mirror, reflecting a possibility of what human society can be when guided by cooperation and shared belief. As we stand today among the ruins of Caral, it is easy to feel the weight of time pressing down upon us. The pyramids are weathered, the plazas eroded, and the homes long vanished. Yet in these stones lies the echo of voices that once filled the air with laughter, prayer, and song. The silence of Caral is not emptiness. It is a silence pregnant with memory, a silence that invites us to listen. Caral's story is not finished. Excavations continue, new discoveries emerge, and with each artifact unearthed, the picture of this ancient civilization grows clearer. But for every answer we gain, new questions arise. Who exactly were the people who built this city? What myths did they tell? What gods did they worship? What dreams did they hold in their hearts? These questions remain unanswered, and perhaps they always will. Yet in their very mystery lies Caral's enduring power. It draws us closer, not with certainty but with wonder, reminding us that the past is not simply something to be known, but something to be experienced, felt, and pondered. In the end, Caral's legacy is twofold. It is the stone pyramids and plazas that testify to human ingenuity, and it is the unanswered questions that remind us of our limits. It is both a monument to what humanity can achieve and a mystery that humbles us before the vastness of history. And in this balance, between knowledge and mystery, lies the true gift of Caral. This has been the story of Caral, America's forgotten metropolis, a city without kings, without armies, yet with monuments that have endured for 5,000 years. Its mysteries remain unsolved, its silence unbroken, yet its legacy continues to shape how we understand civilization itself. What lessons does Caral hold for us today? And what secrets still lie buried beneath its sands? As we leave the Supe Valley, we are reminded that history is never truly finished. It waits, patiently, for us to uncover its truths. Join us next time on Forgotten Civilizations, as we explore another great mystery of the ancient world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so you never miss the next chapter of our journey into the past.